joy and success. Every day is a chance for happiness. Yes, we can live a beautiful, crazy plan. Every day is a celebration. Every day is a celebration. Every day is a celebration.
You are listening to The Great Song Adventure. I'm Louise Goffin, here with my co-host Paul Zolo.
Hey, Louise.
Hey, Paul. I am so excited. Today we have an amazing guest. Today we have one of our archival episodes with Chrissie Hynde. You want to tell us a bit about this interview, Paul?
Yeah, Chrissie Hynde, you might know, was in a band called The Pretenders. Actually, that was her band. And The Pretenders kept changing with many musicians, but it was always Chrissie. And she didn't want to be a solo artist, which I think was great. And I did this over the phone. She was home in London. And you can tell I sound a little intimidated because it's Chrissie Hynde, and it's harder over the phone to establish a connection with the person. And she, as you'll hear in the following, is not someone that's going to easily accept praise in any way. Quite the opposite. She's not the kind of songwriter that wants to take a lot of self-glory, to the extent that she said, I don't even consider myself a songwriter. And come on, she wrote so many amazing songs. I mean, I'm a huge fan, and I love The Pretenders. And this album had just come out, 2008 is when we did this, Break Up the Concrete, and many brilliant songs. Rock and roll, they had a lot of energy, but brilliantly written. And so I'd say she is a songwriter, a pretty amazing one.
She's an amazing songwriter, and I also just love listening to her talk. I love her attitude, and there's just a strength of point of view in the way she talks about things. We actually hung out a little bit in the 90s. I lived in London not far from her, and it was like getting to hang out with her, just hearing her voice on this. It was lovely.
Nice.
I related to her talking about having less chords. If you have 7 chords, you're kind of locked in melodically, and goes on to point out that some James Brown songs have 1 chord in the whole song.
And that's an important lesson. Good songwriters get to that point, that you're not writing these songs to impress other guitarists or songwriters. If it only needs 1 or 2 chords, but it sounds great, that's what you should do. Simplicity really goes a long way. So she's a very crafty and smart songwriter too. And but still she would deny any credit. I try to talk about the process. You hear those birds? She would appreciate that. But she'd say, it depends. I'll wake up in the next morning on the floor and there'll be a lot of empty bottles of wine, and I'll see if there's anything there. So she's that kind of songwriter that's just completely casting herself into the thing and seeing what comes out. And, she grew up in Akron, obviously, in America, but going to England was an important, profound transition in her life. I asked her, what do you think would have happened if you didn't go? And she said, I probably would have died. She thought there was no other option, but that's where she was saved, and that's where she was discovered. And the band from the beginning, James Honeyman's got these great people, and he died really young, but she just kept going. So, she's a hero, a rock and roll hero in a lot of ways.
One of the things that was evident here, and, we know this about Chrissie Hynde, but she is an animal activist, and in her description, she's an animal activist first and a songwriter second. Mm-hmm. And then you talk about the song Boots of Chinese Plastic, which it really was a little bit about that. Well, she said it was more a philosophical song, but she said that you do look fantastic in them because they're not made of leather. So
right. And I took that completely wrong. I thought that was a symbol of cheap American crass kind of commercialism. You're wearing these boots of plastic from China. She goes, no, that's much better than leather boots. Yeah. And she's someone that does not suffer fools that don't get her point of view at all. And she's very upset with people that don't understand what we're doing to animals. But she's that way with God, too. I mentioned God to her, and it's like, if people don't understand there's an author to all of this, that's their problem. Not, we understand they're humans, and we'll try to help them. That's not who Chrissie is.
Let's listen to it.
Yeah, so from 2008, this is part 1 of the interview with Chrissie Hynde.
It seems like you still care and you still enjoy writing songs as much as you ever did.
I don't know. I never even think of I kind of think of myself as a songwriter and stuff. I just am kind of I don't know. It's a moment, like I picked up the guitar last night and I was just shit, and I thought, I'm just a phony. So, I go through those down periods of thinking, and then you get an idea, and I've just finished an album. Actually, I'll be finishing it today. or tomorrow, that with this Welsh singer-songwriter that I met about a year ago.
Mm.
And it's a total diversion from what I was doing. I was on tour with the Pretenders, and I came back, and then I met him in a bar somewhere, and he sent me a song when I was on tour, and he just sent me a few songs, and I thought they were really good, really good. And then he said, hey, we should try writing together, and we did. So we just finished a whole album. It happened really fast.
Wow. You seem to still really enjoy music and are as excited about music as ever. I mean, is that the
Not
truth?
really. You know,
No?
in fact, I get really down on myself and think, it actually worries me sometimes because I listen to stuff and I think I just don't like anything that's out there. And then I start to think that it's just me. And then once in a while something really great will come along and I realize maybe the other stuff just wasn't that good and that's why I didn't like it. Also because of my age.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, like I was 14 when the first Beatles album came out. So, you know, if you do the math,
Yeah.
I just had all the best music at all the right times in my life. You know?
Right.
I
Yeah,
was
you're
there
just
with
a little
Jimi
older
Hendrix
than me.
right from the start. I was there with, you know, Otis Redding, all the greats.
Mm.
You know, I lived there when their albums, you know, I went out and got the albums when they came out. It's not like like I'm looking back or anything. I was right in there at the right time.
Yeah.
And frankly, we haven't produced another Jimi Hendrix, and we haven't produced another James Brown, and we haven't produced another Bob Marley, or, you know?
Yeah, not only that, I mean, I grew up just a few years after you, and you know, so I was aware of the Beatles when they first came on the radio too, and music changed so much at that point, and continued to, that I felt as a kid that it would continue to evolve as quickly and as profoundly as it did then, and it really didn't. I mean, did you feel that there was a new place for music to go to, and it got there, or I mean, how do you feel about the evolution
Really
of it?
interesting time, because of my age, you know, I was coming to London and being in Paris right before the sort of punk thing happened here. I'm kind of learned how to really recognize when you're going through a transitional period, which feels really when people are going through transitions, you don't know you're going through a transition. Things just you don't feel earthed. You don't feel, you know, something's, I don't know, it feels like you're on shaky ground, but you don't know why.
Mm-hmm.
And then when the transition's over, I'm not explaining this very well, but you see that it was a transition.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is I can kind of recognize them now.
Yeah.
And we've been going through one for some time
Yeah.
with everything. I mean, the whole industry's collapsed. No
Yeah.
one knows how to sell records or where it is anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And everything's gone on the computer. But this seems to go in cycles, and then people keep buying guitars and people keep being in bands. So, I mean, that seems to be the one thing that, I mean, when I say keep, you know, we're only talking about the last 100 years.
Mm-hmm.
Or, you know, less than that, 60 years. The last time I saw a really, really fertile, exciting musical scene was actually on television the other day. It was a documentary on the year that changed jazz, or the jazz changed the world, 1958.
Mm.
It was all Lee Morgan and Ornette Coleman.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't know if Lee Morgan was in that show, but I love him, and, you know, Coltrane, all the greats. And that's when it was really, really exciting music.
Mm-hmm.
Music's also been informed very largely by the drugs everyone's taking during the time. You know,
Yeah,
it's always
sure.
had a lot to do with it. And I'm always trying not to take drugs and not to drink. You know, like everyone else, I'm trying to get unaddicted. But, you know, we worked really hard at those addictions to get addicted, and it's really hard to undo it.
Well, someone was saying that's the new cocaine now, being straight. Even Dylan was saying that, you know, right with a straight mind, like it's a new experience.
Well, when I've done it in the past and I've gone straight, I remember the one time and I thought, wow, what does this feel like? I recognize this feeling. And I realized it's how I felt when I was 14 before I started getting loaded.
Yeah.
Because it was the last time I felt like that. So that kind of, well, it's kind of a youth pill, you know. So that's what Dylan said, try
writing with a straight mind, as if it's a brand new challenge, you know, try doing that. And, you know, I know a lot of us knew what that was like, because we used to be high all the time, and it is a whole different mindset.
Yeah, and, you know, I mean, it's always been the drugs that have informed the music and stuff, but ultimately everyone comes to the same conclusion if they live through it.
But like me, you grew up where the great idols of ours in rock and roll all did drugs, so they were almost encouraging us, like, if you want to go on this road, drugs is a part of it.
Well, it was a part of it, and it's part of that kind of mind-altering. That's part of been part of every art and music scene ever.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's fucked up, but there you have it.
Well, it seems with songwriting, drugs are a natural...
Where would Lucinda Williams be if it were not for the hangover?
Exactly.
You know, I mean, we all write songs when we're depressed and we're crying and we're all fucked up. So, you know, if you don't get depressed and fucked up and you're not crying and, you know, or maybe you're even in a good relationship, what the hell are you going to write about?
And drugs seem an obvious avenue to take if you want to kind of put the world aside and concentrate on writing a song. It's kind of an easy... I can understand why songwriters turn to drugs often.
Well, and also I think songwriters and so-called more, you know, people with that creative way of dealing with the world. I mean, I think that sounds pretentious, so I try to avoid that. But, you know, artists, only in my recent years have I really taken on board that some people just aren't creative.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you meet people that say, oh, wow, you can draw, I can't draw. Oh, you can sing. What? That must be great to be able to do something. And then you look at them and you think, what are you talking about? And the truth is, some people can't sing or draw.
Yeah.
And, you know, once you kind of really understand that, and I think I never really understood that I thought everyone could sing and draw and do stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was in a karaoke club one night when I made the discovery that actually not everyone can sing.
That would be a place to see that. Uh-huh. No, I know what you mean.
You hear girls at checkout counters in, you know, drugstores, and they're singing, and they have the most beautiful voice. They sing better than anyone on the radio.
Yeah.
So, but it's, you know, clearly not. It's not everyone's jurisdiction.
I know. I think it's common that artists have a hard time understanding that a lot of people don't have artistic frames of mind.
Well, it is that's what I'm saying. It's only been very recently that I understand that people see. You know, it's just a different way of. You know,
it seems
who
that
knows how anyone else sees? We have our senses are imperfect anyway.
Yeah.
So, you know, who knows if everyone sees green or, you know,
absolutely
the same way? Obviously they don't, because some people are colorblind.
And given that,
who knows
people...
how it's translated to the... I know, this is just bullshit what I'm saying, but...
No, it's not. I mean, given that, people take songs in different ways, which I find very interesting. That they'll hear Talk of the Town and get totally different responses to it.
It might look to you when you see me on stage in this DVD, and, you know, there's a collection of songs which I've largely been responsible for, that I'm prolific or I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But the truth is I'm not very prolific, and I feel like a half-assed songwriter and a phony most of the time. I mean, you know, I pace up and down when I'm trying to write a song, just shouting. But sometimes I get there in the end. I don't know.
You know, it's interesting to me, the songwriters that seem to keep being connected with great songwriting all seem to say kind of what you do, like Randy Newman's the same way, that he really puts himself down, that he's not good, and it seems like maybe there's part of you that wants to continue to be better. You haven't accepted that you're great. Does that make sense?
I've just got away with it, man. Come on.
You just got away with
Not
it.
anything really original or anything that, you know, I'm just trying to get through it. I'm just, you know, mine was the last act of a desperate man, you know. I just didn't want to be a waitress, so.
Yeah, but to us, to people that have loved your music, and I've loved it since the start and really paid attention to what you're saying, you have stretched songs, and you have done things with songs that other people haven't done. And also you've created songs that people still love. You've created timeless songs. I mean, that's a big accomplishment. It's interesting how much where you came from has colored your music, even though you really made your name while you were in London and spent a lot of time in England. But so many of those songs reflect, you know, the red brick streets of where you're from and how your city has changed, and kind of this sadness at looking at what's become of America.
Yeah, I have. It's kind of weird, isn't it?
No, it's not weird.
It's been my obsession all my life, and I've tried to go back to the Midwest and, you know, rebuild those downtowns. I've thought about it for hours and hours. I've thought about it for years. What happened to America?
Yeah.
And then I finally concluded that, well, the way we got that land was really not, you know, that's where we went wrong.
Right.
You know, we stole that land.
Yeah.
And we built those cities on someone else's, you know, on their burial grounds.
Yeah.
And so those cities had to go. You know, karmically, we could, you know, we committed a sort of act of genocide, and what you put out comes back. And so those cities just couldn't live.
Mm.
I mean, Akron and Washington, D.C. were two of the they were the two largest growing cities at one time in the States. I mean, Akron was a thriving. It had all this industry and all these people.
Mm-hmm.
But, America had all those problems. And, a lot of them were, with the slaves and the emancipation and all that. And I don't think that people like my parents who were very, hardworking, they've been there for a few generations. They probably were Welsh coal miners. And, they were just real ordinary Americans in the beginning.
Yeah.
And I don't think that I could say my parents were racist or anything, but I think that mix, that clash of cultures frightens people. I mean, you see it all around the world, and I think that's more than racism. I think racism is obviously in the South and everything. There was real problems, and there always has been.
Mm-hmm.
But it's more of people are afraid of other cultures.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm living in the most multicultural city probably in the whole world right now in London.
Yeah.
And you can see that people can get along, but there's a real conflict when what is considered blasphemy and what is considered totally unacceptable in one culture is, kind of, you're getting your nose rubbed in it every single day on the streets where you live.
Yeah, right.
Anyway, but when the blacks started moving into the urban centers,
Mm-hmm.
and, the whites fled, and then they started, then, they went into the suburbs. And you know what, I'm not entirely that hopeful that we can retrieve our zocolos or our centers, our city centers.
Yeah.
Because it's all gone into that kind of strip mall mentality, and you can't even walk across the street. You have to get in a car to cross the street.
But it's a thought I've been having a lot, too. I grew up in Illinois, and all around my home was all cornfields, and now it's all suburbs. And, chain, strip malls, like you say. And so I've thought a lot, too. And the town I came from had the red brick streets, and some of those towns still do. I mean, there's still people that kind of are living back a few decades ago and kind of are trying to escape the world that you're describing.
But what happens is you lose your youth culture, because when kids grow up and they become, they get out of school and stuff, they want to move out of their parents' house and move downtown and get an apartment with some friends and do something.
Right.
Well, if there's no downtown, there's nowhere for them to go. They have to leave town. They have to leave the city.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, what kind of a 18-year-old wants to, get a job so they can get a mortgage and a car?
Sure.
They usually have other things in mind. Well, that's what's happened. That's the story of the American cities. For all sorts of reasons, they've kind of collapsed.
Well, when you went back to Akron, were you able to? Was it a sad reality to see what it is now, or were you able to be happy connecting with what it used to be?
It was sad for me in the 70s when they really had raised the downtown.
Oh.
And I milked it for all I could. But no, I mean, I just stood there and cried when I went there. I used to, I was a funny little. I used to walk downtown with my friend, and it would take us like hours to walk downtown. But there was nothing to do in Akron, so we walked downtown. There was only 2 department stores, but that was the big downtown for us, and we loved that. But they just knocked it all down and made great big inner belts, and I grew up with it all my life. The house that I was first in, my grandmother's house, they picked it up and put it on rollers and moved it up the hill, and that's where the inner belt came through. All the streets got cut up. Yeah, I have obsessively talked about it.
Yeah, how the streets.
On this last album, I'm talking about.
Yeah, since the streets got rearranged, is that specifically? Yeah. Well, that theme permeates your work. Some most things have changed, but there are things that haven't changed. The one thing never changed. And songs are that way, and that a great song, like even your early one, A Message of Love, I enjoy that as much today as I did the first time I heard it.
Oh, well, that's nice. That was that was kind of my version of Wayne Fontana and the Mindbenders, When a Man Loves the Purpose of a Man, actually.
Oh. Well.
Anyway,
that's why it's hard. That's why it's hard for me to accept that you don't think that your songwriting is that important or great, because you've created so many songs that are beloved, and have stayed that way.
It's just the way I feel, I'm just feeling like that today. But no, I don't think that. Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
What's going on right now in music, and I enjoyed being on that last tour, the one that you see on the more than any tour I've ever done.
Yeah.
The fucking blast.
Yeah.
I love playing with that band. And it's a funny thing. Every year, I suppose, you think maybe you're coming to the end, or that you're kind of... Even when I didn't even get in the Pretenders. By the time I was 24, I thought I was too old to be in a band. Because it used to be a real youth culture.
Yeah. And I read you say, yeah. When you started writing songs, did you write alone? Did you write your first song by yourself?
Yeah, because I had my little guitar, but I wasn't good enough to play along with records, so I had to write my own songs to have something to play.
How old were you then?
Because I knew 2 chords, I loved singing, so you can get a lot of melodies, and the least amount of chords you're playing, the more melodic possibilities you have.
Oh, that's interesting. How old were you when you...
If you got if you got 7 chords, you're stuck with those chords. If you just... James Brown, some of his best songs was just 1 chord.
Yeah, yeah. But that's an understanding a lot of...
if you played into a 2nd chord.
How old were you when you wrote your first one?
14.
That understanding something not all songwriters know, that it doesn't take a lot of chords to write a great melody, that really fewer chords, as you say, could create a better melody.
Well, yeah, that's why we have limited skills, and, me and a lot of... I mean, sometimes I've wondered, because it really frustrates me that I'm not a better guitar player. I'm good at the one thing I can do, but I'm not, I can't listen to something and then just play what I want to play.
Right.
It's a struggle for me. I am a rhythm guitar player, and that's what I always wanted to be, ever since I heard a James Brown record.
But your songs, like, when I play your songs musically on the guitar, it's kind of like playing a Dylan song, is that, wow, I didn't realize that it was actually that simple. It doesn't sound as simple as it is often. Like even Boots of Chinese Plastic, it's only 3 chords, but it's a tremendous song.
Oh, well, the less is more, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, as opposed to some people who write 3-chord songs and all their songs sound the same. You, like with Message of Love, you have just a few chords, but it changes key. It's like an A and then it goes to a C. So you're doing unusual things, even though you're using few chords.
Yeah, well, that's from having very little technical skill.
Oh.
And not counting anything or knowing the names of the chords and stuff helps. Up to a point.
When you said you started with 2 chords, do you remember which 2 chords you started with?
Probably A and D or something.
A lot of your songs are in A. Is that one of your favorite keys to play in?
I don't know. I don't know that... no, I don't know. I don't know what... I don't know where I sing the best. I don't know what my key is. I don't know what keys the songs are in. I don't know which side I photograph well on. I don't know any of those things.
Yeah. But the side you photograph on, that's a lot different than the chords of your own songs. I mean, you must have some knowledge of how
you would think after being photographed for 30 years, someone might have figured that out.
I guess that's true, too, yeah.
And the rest of it is I just go by the dots,
Oh.
Play above the 3rd dot.
But when you sit down to write a song, how do you avoid just going in the same patterns you've gone to before? How do you write something that sounds new?
Well, I don't avoid it. I think I am going in the same patterns. I told you, I don't think you can get 3 of the best rock musicians in the world, or any musicians, but if there's, you've got to have that one focal point to kind of distill it all.
Yeah.
Or it's just going to be lost in space, They might enjoy it while they're playing in their basement, but
the truth is, a lot of the best songwriters have had limited, capability on guitar, and they've written, like a Dylan, for example, but they've written some tremendous songs. Even the Beatles use pretty simple chords. So do you think the limitations sometimes can create great things because of the limitations?
Yeah, I think so, because I think you find that even like if you were decorating a flat, or, if you have a low budget, or just look at kids, look at teenagers. If you go on a high street somewhere and you see the kids in a rich part of town, they're wearing designer clothes and stuff, and they look like shit. But if you go into the really poor part of town, you'll see kids, ones that are into music anywhere, they really have a look.
Yeah.
And the more limited your budget, often it makes you more creative. That's what I think.
Yeah.
If you have unlimited resources, sometimes you just too many choices.
Right.
You've got to. It's all about hunger, isn't it?
Mm.
When you really want something badly, you'll get it.
Yeah.
When you're satiated, and you've had too much. I mean, there's not much creative possibility, is there?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I was trying to say and couldn't at first, that you still sound hungry in terms of your songwriting. Like Boots of Chinese Plastic, that's a very inventive and inspired and great song. And people at your level of your career often don't write stuff like that anymore.
Well, I don't know.
There aren't many.
It's a song about philosophy, basically. And if you're not thinking about philosophy at my age, you might as well just put a gun in your mouth.
But you've been one of the best, like that song, at combining philosophy and a sense of spirituality with rock and roll. I mean, George Harrison did it, but you've made statements.
Well, I try to keep it hidden, because certain things you just can't expose to the light or to the public. But I try. That's my philosophy, and where I'm coming from, and why I do this has always been exactly the same.
I know.
Never changed. And it's all ultimately about cow protection and what you might call animal rights, or and that's something that I've had with me, since early.
But what you were saying, that there's this consistency of message through your early work to now, and I've been listening to all your stuff at once, and that comes across clearly. I mean, the message of love and Boots of Chinese Plastic is connected.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, it is.
it's funny how you say you've kind of keeping it hidden. And one of my friends said, I like Chrissie because she sneaks spirituality into songs. But I don't think it's that sneaky. I mean, like Boots of Chinese Plastic, it's pretty much out there if you pay attention to what you're saying. It's not sneaky.
I mean, it couldn't be any more out there,
Yeah.
I'd be, burying a cross if it was any more out there. But the thing is, it's weird because, I write this song that is, I'm saying, it's, very, very literal. And, I did quite a lot of press for that album, and I, did a lot of interviews. And really, no one ever asked me anything about that song, and I thought that was really kind of far out. But I could be chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, talking about Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
And nobody's ever said anything about it, like,
Huh.
It's very strange. And
Well, I'm glad I get to ask you
because
questions.
I thought you can still, I don't know. Certain things you have to keep a veil on certain things, and I thought maybe I didn't on that song. But, I seem to have got away with it. Not that it's going to change anyone's life, but, no one came to me and said, so what are you talking about here?
Well, I guess the sneaky part about it, maybe why they missed it, is that it is rock and roll, and it's got a classic, like, Bo Diddley beat, so maybe they're just hearing a rock and roll song and not paying attention.
Well, that's good.
Is it good?
Sure, if they're still chanting Hare Krishna, and if they're still, thinking about Jesus Christ and, saying Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, it can't be a bad thing, can it?
Even I just realized recently that I think you said that line, every drop that runs through the vein makes its way back to the heart. Is that the translation of Nam Myoho Renge Kyo?
No, in fact, that line was from a song that I was trying to write when I was trying to get the Johnny Moped Band together.
Oh, really?
Called The Unusuals, and that was even before the Pretenders.
Oh. I read one article, you said that was the translation of that, but...
I never said that.
Yeah, well, stuff you read, it's often mixed up.
Yeah.
But,
anything you read is already out of context, because, you're not there when it's being said. But no, Nam Myoho Renge Kyo is, I don't even know the literal translation.
Yeah. It's a beautiful song in that line, I see you in the birds and in the trees. I mean, I think that's kind of the heart of so many of your songs. Recognizing God in, in the trees and in nature.
Well, that's what I mean. That will be the continuity in my songs. Other than, heartbreak and fucked up relationships and, being that kind of stuff. But I really roll with the punches in my life, I get traumatized. But it's the philosophy that can keep you, on your path. Otherwise you've got nothing.
It's funny, too, when I hear this song, I'm not quite sure when you say you look fantastic in your Boots of Chinese Plastic, if that's a joke or not, if you're sincere. Like, do you really think this person looks great, or if that's just a joke that...
Well, no, I think they look great because they're not wearing leather.
Oh, okay. Well, that's cool. But, I mean, that...
I guess I snuck that one in.
I didn't get it. I thought it was kind of a comment on, we have all this timeless beauty around us, and people are getting excited about, plastic boots. That's a kind of a symbol of disposable culture.
No, it's just part of my thing, my endless quest to find the nearest Payless, because I don't wear leather, so.
Yeah.
Or, I tell a lie because I actually can't afford Stella McCartney boots, of which I have many, so.
Oh, yeah. And I was wondering if you had heard, this made me think of you, that the Vatican attacked the movie Avatar because it said it promoted a new divinity where nature is God, as if that was something brand new.
I didn't hear about that.
Yeah. It's like there are certain forces fighting us still, trying to keep us from the understanding that's in your songs, kind of an understanding of, the value and the sacredness of nature and of living things.
Well, yes, but there's more value in the creator of all that.
Sorry?
I mean, there is more value in the one who created it. So I understand where the Vatican's coming from.
Oh, that's interesting. Huh.
I mean, this is only the material world.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're not beholden to who created it, then I don't know what you're looking at, really.
Oh.
I mean, of course it's beautiful.
But it's that kind of thought, though. Some people say, well, we're going to a different world, and we come from God, so it's okay to, pave over everything and, put concrete over everything and destroy the earth. I mean, do you feel those kind of ideas?
Who would say that?
Well, I think there are very religious people who, what they consider sacred has no place on the earth, so that it's okay to destroy animals, or it's okay to cut down trees because you're going to another world.
They're living with a false doctrine, then.
Yeah. But the false doctrine seems
they're
pretty...
living with an imperfect... people will gravitate and find and be born into and, find their own level of their own understanding. They always will.
Yeah.
So, I mean, whether they... how anyone can... there's not any religion that actually promotes or condones the killing of animals. What they say in these, halal meat and the, kosher laws and all these other, it's all bullshit. But nowhere in the Quran or in the Torah or in the Bible, it never says anywhere to kill and eat animals. In fact, on the first page of the Bible, it says, I give you herb-bearing grain.
Mm-hmm.
And for you, it'll be meat. I mean, but I don't even know why that people don't take that literally. Thou shalt not kill. And yet we're killing billions and billions of animals every year. So we're doomed, because that is murder. That's unlawful killing. What we're doing in factory farms, it's Nazi Germany. As far as I'm concerned, I'm a warrior, and I'm, engaged in a war, which I'm very willing and happy to die fighting.
Yeah.
And that is my war against meat eaters, and that's why I'm in music.
That's why you're in music?
Yep, and it always has been. And I don't say that in the songs, but what I can do is at least get a little bit of attention, have some fun, and I hopefully encourage people to stop that.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I mean, you have written about a lot of things that you believe in, like My City Is Gone and destroying the cities. How come you haven't directly put that animal message into a song?
I don't know. I guess I just haven't figured out how to do it well yet. And Morrissey had that beautiful song.
Yeah. I'm a songwriter, too, and
I just haven't managed. And the other thing is, I'm kind of mindful of never sounding like... I never want to preach to anyone, because unless someone invites advice, or unless someone actually asks you, they'll hate you for it.
Yeah.
Nobody wants advice or wants to be told what to believe or what they should be doing. Nobody, especially me.
Right.
People told me I should be using email for 15 years, and I wouldn't even go open a computer.
Yeah.
I don't like being told what I should do.
Right.
15 years later, they were saying, after saying, oh, you've got to get email, it's so great. And now they're saying, oh, you're so lucky that you don't use email.
Right.
I don't know what happened where I got lost in that arc of you got to have it to where you're so lucky not to have it.
But it seems that among songwriters, those that became activists got so involved with their pursuit that they lost touch of their songwriting. And some songwriters, like Dylan,
a lot of people, animal rights people do that. They lose their human companions.
Yeah.
Too. You can't. None of it. We're not going to save the world. We can only save our own soul.
Right.
So our job on Earth is not to save the world.
Huh.
So if you think that's your job, then take your Messiah complex and do what you have to do with it.
You said in Message of Love, our job is basically to take care of each other. Is that what you feel?
Yeah, I do. I think we're social creatures. We have to look after each other because, if we were supposed to be alone, there'd only be one person on the planet. So, it's just obvious, isn't it?
The question is, how have you been able to be so passionate about animal rights and not let that get in the way of your work? I mean, not that it would be a bad thing, but that it hasn't taken over your life completely.
Well, it's because I know that I can lend myself more to it by having a famous name, than actually being on the front line.
Yeah.
And that's just the way it's worked out. I've got stacks and stacks of requests from animal charities and stuff.
I bet.
And if I can, it's a creepy society. It's a celebrity society. People are more interested in, what someone that they're never going to meet is wearing,
Mm-hmm.
or who they're dating, or what they, than their own lives. They're more interested in other people's lives than their own lives. It's just got so voyeuristic.
Why do you think that is?
Because people don't know who they are.
Yeah.
They don't know who their real self is. They're confused. They think their body is they think that they are their body.
Mm.
So they become obsessed with, things just related to their body. They stop meat eating because they don't want to put that into their body.
Yeah.
It's all about their body. They're just, they're confused.
Yeah.
It's, there's different levels of consciousness, and very few people are fully conscious. Very, very few people. I'm sure I'm not.
Yeah.
But, there's a budding there's a stunted consciousness, which is more like the consciousness of a tree.
Yeah.
There's a budding consciousness, which is starting to open. A fully open consciousness, not very many people have those. And you can't have it when you've got this clouded over with, meat eating and all these other practices which prevent that.
Yeah, I understand. And when I listen to all your music, there's a sense of an old soul looking at this world with some sadness looking at this world.
Well, the soul's eternal, so, how old is that?
It seems some are farther along than others, though. Or more conscious, maybe that's the way you put it.
Well, who knows,
Yeah.
They say there's 8,400,000 species and that we transmigrate through all of them.
Hmm. You think that's so?
Yeah.
Huh. I've interviewed Randy Newman a number of times, and he always mentions how much he loves you as a songwriter.
Wow, awesome.
And he told me he told you that once, and you thought he was joking.
Wow.
But you're very similar to him in that he's very he's not pretentious about his work, or will never hold himself up as, he's very, like you, very reticent to celebrate his greatness as a songwriter.
Well, come on, it's not the Sermon on the Mount, is it?
And yet it does seem, songs are one of the few meaningful things that aren't just part of disposable culture that people have in their lives. Now, even now, people are always walking around listening to songs, so it seems that songs do matter in some way.
Yeah, it is true. No, I agree. I guess I just feel like I'm not such a worthy, how did I get in here? Like, I always feel like I kind of just got away with it, like it was a scam I pulled off. But I agree with you about the songs, because songs inform your whole life, and they really do. And there's no way of telling what is going to turn you on in a song. That's so subjective.
Chrissie Hynde.
Yeah, that was from a 2008 interview I did with her about the Break Up the Concrete album. And you might have heard some strange music sneaking in. And, I'll admit I did these on cassette. And I'm not sure, but I think that might have been a cassette I'd already had music on, or maybe it was just bleeding over from somewhere else. But didn't really need that, but an interesting effect.
And it gives a lot of credibility to it, too.
I think it does. So that's the end of part one, and we're going to bring part two of Chrissie Hynde on our next great song adventure.
And there will be lots of great song adventures to come. Stick with us. We are on all those social media things that you follow.
Yeah, any of them. Just go and find us there and we'll be there waiting.
The Great Song Adventure.
We can live a beautiful, crazy plan. Every day's a celebration. Every day's a celebration.